My husband left me for a woman 15 years younger, took everything we built together, and left me alone with 3 kids. But when she found out the truth about him and was brutally abandoned herself, he came begging for me to take him back. And what I did next will shock you. I stood at the door of my own home, the house I had paid for by myself for the last 2 years, looking at the man who once swore to love me until death did us part. And he was on his knees before me, crying like a child, begging me to let him in, saying he had made the biggest mistake of his life, that Sophie had left him with nothing, that he had nowhere to go, that his children needed their father. And I felt something I never thought I would feel seeing that broken man at my door. I felt absolutely nothing. Not anger, not pity, not love. Nothing. Just a cold emptiness where a broken heart once was. And when he grabbed the hem of my pants and whispered in a choked voice that he loved me, that he had always loved me, that he had been an idiot, I looked him right in the eyes, those same eyes that had ignored me for years, that had shone with desire for another woman, that had looked at me with contempt when I begged him to stay. And I said, with a calmness that scared even me, a phrase I had rehearsed 1,000 times in my head during sleepless nights, and his tears multiplied as the words left my mouth, because he realized in that moment that he had lost not just a wife, but the only person who had ever truly loved him unconditionally. And that woman no longer existed. I had buried her along with our marriage. And what stood before him now was someone completely different, someone he didn't recognize, someone he himself had created with his own hands through every betrayal, every humiliation, every broken promise. Before we go on, I want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for being here, watching, and listening to this story that completely changed my life. And if you're enjoying this content, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any new stories, and leave a like, because it helps me so much to keep sharing these real experiences that might touch the heart of someone who is going through something similar. I created this space so we could connect through our stories, our pain, and our victories, because I believe that when we share what we've been through, we help other people find the strength to carry on, to not give up on themselves, and to understand that they are not alone on this journey. So please become a part of this community, subscribe. And now let's get back to that moment at my front door. But before I tell you what I said to him, you need to understand how we got there, how a 15-year marriage, 3 children, and so many shared dreams turned into that man on his knees, begging for the mercy he never gave me. I met Richard when I was 22. I was a receptionist at a medical clinic, and he was a medical sales rep. A handsome, charming man who won me over with romantic dinners and promises of a quiet, happy life. We got married 2 years later in a simple ceremony filled with love, or at least that's what I thought at the time. In the early years, he was attentive, helped around the house, and complimented me. When our first daughter, Beatrice, was born, he seemed like the proudest father in the world. We bought our first house on a tight mortgage, but it was ours, every brick laid with sweat and sacrifice. Then came Gabriel and Sophia, and our family was complete. But it was precisely when Sophia was born that everything started to change. Richard started working more and more. Constant business trips, meetings that ran late into the night, weekends at the office. And I, naively, believed he was building a better future for us. I was left alone with 3 small children, waking up at the crack of dawn, changing diapers, dealing with fevers and tantrums, juggling the house, the kids, and my part-time job as an administrative assistant. Meanwhile, Richard was growing more distant, more irritable, colder. He would come home and barely look at me, never asking how my day was, never noticing when I got my hair cut or wore that dress he used to love. The kids would run to hug him, and he'd impatiently push them away, saying he was tired, that he needed some quiet, that they were too loud. I started noticing strange messages on his phone, calls he would take in another room, a different perfume on his shirt. But whenever I asked, he would explode. He called me crazy, paranoid, suffocating. He'd say I was a nagging wife who did nothing but complain, that he was working himself to the bone to support the family, and all I did was accuse him of absurd things. And I believed him. I truly believed the problem was me, that I was overreacting, that it was just my insecurity talking. So I tried to be better, more understanding, more beautiful, more interesting. I would wake up earlier to make his coffee just the way he liked it, keep the house impeccable, and get myself put together even when I was exhausted. But nothing was ever enough. He would only look at me with that icy contempt that froze my soul. My mother-in-law, Marlene, made everything worse. She never liked me, always thought her son deserved someone better, someone richer, more educated, more elegant, and she made a point of reminding me of that with every visit. She criticized my cooking, my home, my clothes, the way I was raising her grandchildren. And Richard never defended me. He would stay silent, or worse, agree with her. His sister, Patricia, was even worse, a venomous gossip who was always inventing lies about seeing me talking to other men, about me not taking good care of the children, about the house always being a mess. Lies that Richard absorbed as absolute truth. Until one day, 3 years ago, I discovered the truth that had been pounding in my chest, a truth I had refused to accept. I found explicit messages on his laptop, which he had left open, conversations with a 25-year-old intern from his company named Catherine, sensual photos, filthy conversations, declarations of love, plans to run away together. He told her things he had never told me, called her the love of his life, said he felt alive with her, that I was just an obligation, a burden he carried, and that as soon as the children were a little older, he would get rid of me. I confronted him that very night, laptop in hand, trembling with rage and pain. And do you know what he did? He didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. He looked at me with a cruel smirk and said I should be grateful he was still there, that any other man in his place would have left long ago, that I had become a dull, fat, nabbing woman, and that Catherine made him feel like a real man. And so he simply walked out that night and didn't return for a week. When he did come back, it was only to pack a bag and inform me he was leaving for good, that he wanted a divorce, that he was going to live with Catherine, and that I could keep the house and the kids since that's what I wanted, to trap him in a miserable life. The exact moment I decided to stop being a victim was 3 months after he had left home. I was at the supermarket with the 3 children, trying to do the monthly shopping with what little money I had because Richard had stopped paying child support, claiming he was having financial difficulties. Sophia started crying for a chocolate bar, Gabriel wanted a toy, and Beatrice was mortified because her classmates were watching her mother count out coins at the checkout. And that's when I saw them, Richard and Catherine, walking into that very same supermarket. She was impeccably dressed in designer clothes, carrying an expensive purse, her hair professionally styled, while he carried bags overflowing with imported goods, expensive wines, and fine cheeses, laughing loudly without a care in the world, while I stood there with my children, struggling to get by. And when our eyes met, he had the audacity to turn his face away, as if I were a stranger, as if those 3 crying children around me were not his responsibility. And something inside me finally broke, not with pain, but with rage, a cold, calculated anger I had never felt before. That night, after putting the children to bed, I sat down at the kitchen table and began to think, truly think, for the first time in years. I realized I had been a fool, that I had believed all his lies, that I had let him control everything, the finances, the decisions, even my own perception of reality. But now I saw it all with crystal clarity. I started doing research, and I found a family law attorney who worked for affordable rates, Miss Fernandez, an incredible woman who became my ally in this war. She explained my rights to me, showing me I had far more power than I ever imagined. I began to gather documents, bank statements, receipts, screenshots of conversations, anything that could prove his neglect and the hiding of assets. I discovered that Richard had transferred his share of the company into his mother's name to avoid splitting it in the divorce, that he had a secret bank account, and that he'd sold the car registered in his name and hidden the money. Every discovery was a stab to the heart, but it was also ammunition. I went back to school, taking an online course in financial management. I learned about investments, how to manage money, and how to become truly independent. I got a better job as an administrative coordinator at a larger company. The pay wasn't great, but it was mine, earned with dignity, with my own sweat. I started taking care of myself again, not for him, but for me. I lost the weight I'd gained during my pregnancies, started working out again, cut my hair, and refreshed my wardrobe with simple things that made me feel beautiful. And with each passing day, I felt stronger, more clear-headed, more determined. I had a plan now, a plan that would make him regret every humiliation he had caused me. This wasn't revenge for the sake of revenge. It was justice. It was about taking back what was rightfully mine, securing my children's future, and showing him and the world that I was not the weak, pathetic woman he thought I was. I talked to neighbors, to his coworkers, to anyone who knew anything, and I pieced together the perfect puzzle of his double life, the lies, the betrayals, the financial crimes he was committing. And while he thought he was free, living his fairy tale life with his young mistress, I was behind the scenes, setting the stage for the greatest show of his life, the spectacle of his own ruin. And the beauty of it all was that he had no idea what was coming. He had completely underestimated me, thinking I would just stay in a corner forever, crying and feeling sorry for myself. But he was about to discover that the most dangerous woman in the world is one who has nothing left to lose and has decided to reclaim her dignity. The first step of my plan was to ensure everything was legally documented. Ms. Fernandez filed for a contested divorce, requesting the division of all assets and fair child support based on his real salary, not on the ridiculous figures he was declaring. At the same time, she requested an investigation for concealment of assets. And that's when things started to get interesting. We hired a forensic accountant who began to track all of Richard's financial movements over the last 5 years. Every suspicious transfer, every hidden purchase, every single pound he had funneled away. And we discovered a veritable empire of lies. He had not one, but 3 secret accounts. He had bought a condo on the coast in the name of a straw man. He had investments in cryptocurrency that he never declared. The total amounted to nearly £400,000 hidden away, while the children and I were struggling, eating pasta every day. But I didn't stop there. I started frequenting the same places he and Catherine went: gyms, restaurants, always discreet, always observing. And it was during one of these observations that I met Amanda, a former friend of Catherine's who'd had a falling out with her. And Amanda had valuable information. She told me that Catherine was pressuring Richard to marry her, that she wanted luxury, trips, designer bags, that she was bleeding him dry financially, that she had already made him pay for 2 plastic surgeries, and that she had her eye on his family's inheritance. Amanda passed me screenshots of conversations where Catherine openly told her friends she was with Richard for his money, that she found him old and dull, but that the comfortable life made him worth it. This was pure gold. I kept investigating and discovered that Richard was embezzling money from the company where he worked to support his extravagant lifestyle with his mistress. Small amounts he thought no one would notice, but I noticed. I documented everything and sent it anonymously to the company's management. I knew this would all blow up sooner or later. Meanwhile, at home, I focused on being the best mother I could be. The children were in therapy, and we talked openly about their feelings, about their father's absence. I never spoke ill of him in front of them, despite all the anger I felt, because I knew it would be used against me later. I made a point of documenting every time he missed his scheduled visits, every birthday he forgot, every broken promise. Everything was recorded: audio, video, text messages. I built a complete dossier of his parental neglect. At the same time, I began to rebuild my support network. I reconnected with friends I had lost during the marriage because Richard didn't like them. I started going back to the church my mother attended, where I found not only spiritual support, but an entire community of people willing to help. It was at church that I met Dr. Morris, a volunteer psychologist who began offering free counseling sessions to me and the children. He helped me process all the trauma. understand the patterns of emotional abuse I had suffered, and forgive myself for taking so long to react. I also managed to get a few mothers from my children's school to testify about Richard's behavior, about how he never showed up for parent-teacher conferences or school events, how the kids were always asking for the father who never came. They were small bricks I was laying one on top of the other, building an insurmountable wall of evidence against him. And then, exactly what I had been waiting for happened. 6 months after I sent that anonymous dossier to his company, Richard was fired for cause. They discovered the embezzlement, the irregularities. He lost the job he'd had for 15 years, he lost his reputation, and suddenly, the man who thought he was invincible was unemployed, in debt, and desperate. Catherine didn't waste any time. As soon as the money dried up, she started showing her true colors. They argued constantly, the neighbors complained, and she publicly humiliated him on social media, posting long rants about failed men. And when she discovered he had nothing left to offer, she simply packed her bags and left. She abandoned him in that rented flat he could barely afford. Meanwhile, the divorce proceedings were moving forward in my favor. The judge had seen all the evidence of asset concealment, parental neglect, and emotional abuse. The ruling was clear. I would get 80% of the assets, including the house that was already practically mine. He would have to pay heavy child support based on the real salary he had before being fired, and he would only have supervised visits with the children until he could prove he was fit to be a present father. His family, Marlene and Patricia, who had always been so venomous toward me, tried to interfere. They went to the judge, made false accusations, but I had prepared for that too. For every one of their accusations, I countered with concrete proof, photos, videos, witnesses. They ended up being admonished by the judge for attempting to manipulate the proceedings. And the most poetic part of it all is that the condo on the coast he had bought in secret had to be sold to pay off his debts, and a portion of that money came to me as restitution. I watched him sink deeper and deeper, living on handouts at his mother's house, looking for a job and failing because of the stain on his record. Without his mistress, without his money, without the family he had destroyed. Utterly alone. And me? I was rebuilding my life, brick by brick. The house was paid off, the children were doing better, I had been promoted at work, I had real friends, I had peace, I had dignity. I had something he would never have again. I had myself back. And that brings me back to that moment at my front door, Richard, on his knees before me, shattered, humiliated, begging for a second chance, and me looking down at him with a coldness I never knew I was capable of feeling. He took my hand, with those same hands I once loved to hold, and said in a choked voice that he had lost everything, that Catherine had used him and thrown him away like trash, that his family had turned their backs on him when the money ran out, that he had no job, no home, no one, and that he finally understood what he had lost, that I was the only person who had ever truly loved him, that he had been an idiot, a blind fool, a monster, and that he spent his sleepless nights thinking about everything he had done to me, about how he had humiliated me, how he had destroyed our family, and that if I gave him just one chance, only one, he would spend the rest of his life making it up to me, being the husband and father he should have been from the start. Tears streamed down his face. This man who had always been so proud, so arrogant, was there, completely broken. And I let him speak. I let him pour out all that pain, all that regret. And when he finished, when the heavy silence hung between us, I knelt down to meet his eyes, held his face in both my hands, and said, in a calm but firm voice, every word that left my mouth was like a death sentence to him. I said, Richard, you're right about one thing. I truly did love you. I loved you with every fiber of my being. I loved you when you humiliated me in front of your family. I loved you when you cheated on me and called me crazy for suspecting. I loved you when you chose a 25-year-old girl over the mother of your children. I loved you when you abandoned us without a backward glance. I loved you right up until the day I saw you in that supermarket laughing with her while your children went hungry. And it was on that day, in that exact moment, that I buried the woman who loved you. She died right there. And what stands before you now is someone else, a person you created with your own hands, through every lie, every betrayal, every humiliation. I saw his eyes widen with the slow understanding of what I was saying, and I continued. Do you want to know what I did while you were luring your fairy tale with Catherine? I rebuilt everything you destroyed. I got a better job, I paid off the house by myself, and I raised our 3 children without a single penny from you. And you know what else? I documented every abandonment, every unpaid support payment, every broken promise, every lie, and I used it all to make sure justice was done. I was the one who sent that anonymous dossier to your company. I was the one who discovered your secret accounts, your embezzlement, your hidden assets. I was the one who orchestrated every step of your downfall. Because while you underestimated me, thinking I would just stay crying in a corner forever, I was building your hell. The color drained from his face, his mouth fell open in shock, and his tears stopped, replaced by an expression of pure terror. And I showed him the photos Amanda had given me, the screenshots of Catherine's conversations saying she was only with him for the money, proving that not even the woman for whom he destroyed our family ever truly loved him. I showed him the court documents, the divorce decree, the child support he will have to pay for years to come, the supervised visits ordered because the judge deemed him an absent and harmful father. I showed him my bank statement, the paid-off house, the new car I bought with my own money. I showed him a picture of the children, happy, healthy, in therapy, recovering from the trauma he caused. And then I said the words I had saved for years. Richard, you are not here because you love me. You are here because you lost everything, and you think I'm your life raft. But I'm not. I'm not your wife anymore, I'm not your friend. I'm not anything to you. I am just the mother of your children, and as their mother, it is my duty to protect them from anything that could hurt them, and that includes you. So, no, you are not coming into this house. You are not getting your second chance. You are going to live with the consequences of your choices, just as I lived with the consequences of your betrayals for years. The difference is, I survived. I rebuilt myself, and I became stronger. Will you be able to do the same? I don't know, and I don't care. Because what happens to you now is no longer my problem. He tried to speak, tried to argue, but I stood up, looked down at him one last time with a mixture of pity and indifference, and closed the door in his face. I heard him scream my name, pound on the door, beg one more time, but I didn't go back. I walked inside, locked the door, and for the first time in years, I felt a true sense of peace. 2 years have passed since that day at the door, and when I look back, I barely recognize the woman I used to be. The house that was once a battlefield filled with painful memories has become a true home. I redecorated every room, erasing the traces of him and creating a space that reflects who I've become. The walls that once witnessed so many tears now echo with laughter, conversations, music, real life. The children have blossomed in a way that moves me every day. Beatrice, who was only 12 when everything happened and carried so much anger and confusion, is now 14 and doing wonderfully in school. She goes to therapy regularly and has told me she's proud of the mother she has. She understands now that the divorce wasn't my fault, but rather the best decision I could have made to protect all of us. Gabriel has overcome the behavioral problems he had developed. He's back to being that sweet, loving boy. He plays soccer on the school team, and he has real friends. Sophia, who was just a baby when it all fell apart, is 5 years old now, beautiful, smart, full of life. And thankfully, she doesn't carry the same scars as her older siblings because I was able to protect her in time. As for Richard, he does the bare minimum the court ordered. He pays his child support on time because he knows that if he's even a month late, I'll be all over him. The supervised visits, little by little, became regular visits as he proved he was more stable. He found a modest job, nothing compared to what he had before. He lives in a small apartment, alone, and from what I've heard, he's depressed and in therapy, trying to deal with the consequences of everything he did. The children see him, yes, because despite everything, I never wanted to alienate them from their father. But their relationship is different now. They still love him, but with a cautious distance, with a precocious understanding that he failed them and that they are rebuilding from that wound together. His family, Marlene and Patricia, disappeared completely from our lives after everything fell apart. I found out later they turned their backs on him too, once they realized there was no longer any money or status to protect. It's funny how people show their true colors when you have nothing left to offer. As for Catherine, I heard through the grapevine that she's already with another, older, wealthy man, following the same script. Some people never learn. But she did me a favor without knowing it. She exposed the truth I needed to see and freed me from a prison of my own making, one built on the belief that my worth was tied to that marriage. Today, I have a solid career. I've been promoted again and am now a regional manager at my company. I earn a good living, support my family with dignity, and take the children on vacations. Simple things, but to us, they're worth their weight in gold because they were earned through honesty and hard work. I learned to love myself again, to look in the mirror and see not the rejected wife, but the warrior who survived and triumphed. I I started dating again a few months ago. I met Paul at a company event. He's also divorced, a father of two, a kind, respectful man who treats me like a priority and not an option. We're taking it slow, without rushing, learning about each other, building something based on respect and a true partnership. I don't know if it will work out. I don't know if I'll ever get married again, but I do know that I will no longer accept crumbs. I will no longer settle for less than I deserve, because I learned the hard way that self love comes before any other love. I found a deep faith throughout this whole process. The church my mother attended became my refuge, my place of healing. It was there that I found the strength to forgive, not so he could come back, but so I could move forward without carrying the burden of resentment. I forgave Richard not because he deserved it, but because I deserved peace. I deserved freedom. I deserved to no longer wake up with that knot in my chest. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or taking him back. It simply means letting go, letting God handle divine justice while I take care of my own life. I look back at that woman on her knees, crying, begging her husband not to leave, humiliating herself, and losing her dignity, and I feel such deep compassion for her. But I also know she needed to go through all of that to become the person I am today. The scars are still there, I won't lie. There are hard days, moments when the loneliness is overwhelming, nights when I question my choices. But even on the hardest days, I know I made the right decision. Because today, I have something I didn't have in that toxic marriage. I have peace, I have freedom, I have dignity, I have myself back. And I've discovered that this is more valuable than any relationship that demands I shrink myself to exist. My children are seeing a strong, independent mother who doesn't accept disrespect, who fights for her rights, who knows her own worth. And that is the greatest legacy I can leave them, especially Beatrice and Sophia, so they grow up knowing they should never accept less than they deserve, that their value isn't found in having a man by their side, but in who they are on the inside. If I could go back in time and say something to that woman in the supermarket watching her ex-husband with his mistress, I would tell her, breathe. Because all of this that feels like the end of the world right now is just the beginning of your true life. The life you always deserved but were too afraid to seek out. Every day, I am grateful I had the courage to close that door, to say no, to choose myself, because it was the best decision I have ever made. And now I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think about all of this. Have you ever been through a similar situation? Have you felt that pain of being betrayed by someone who swore to love you? Have you ever had to make the impossible decision between forgiving and moving on? Have you ever needed to rebuild your life from scratch after someone destroyed it? Write it down in the comments. Share your story with me, with this incredible community we are building together. Because when we share our experiences, when we show our scars, we help other people understand that they are not alone, that it is possible to survive, that it is possible to rebuild, that it is possible to be happy again. And if you are going through something similar right now, if you're in that moment of pain where it feels like the world has ended, where you can't see a light at the end of the tunnel, I want to tell you something very important. You are not alone. You are stronger than you imagine, and you will get through this. But above all, I want to encourage you to seek spiritual help from God, because it was my faith that sustained me through the darkest moments. When I thought I couldn't take another day, it was the presence of Jesus Christ that gave me the strength to get out of bed and keep going, to not give up on my children, to not give up on myself. If you don't yet have a personal relationship with God, I invite you to seek Him, to open your heart to Him, because He has a wonderful plan for your life, even when everything seems lost. Find a church near you, a community of faith where you can find support, prayer, and a warm welcome. People who will lift you up when you don't have the strength to stand on your own. Because the journey is lighter when we are not alone, and God never abandons us, even when everyone else does. He is a refuge, a fortress, peace in the midst of the storm. It was He who gave me the wisdom to make the right decisions, who gave me the courage to close that door, who gave me the strength to forgive and move forward. And He can do the same for you. Jesus Christ transforms lives, heals wounds, restores what was broken, and He is waiting with open arms to receive you. It doesn't matter what you've been through, it doesn't matter how many times you've fallen. He loves you unconditionally and wants to see you free, healed, and happy. So please, don't try to face this all alone. Seek God. Seek a community of faith and allow Him to perform the miracle in your life that He performed in mine. I pray for every person watching this video right now, especially for those who are suffering, who are in abusive relationships, who have lost hope, who can't see a way out. I pray that God touches your hearts, that He gives you the courage and wisdom needed to make the right decisions, to protect yourselves, to protect your children, and to rebuild your lives on the solid foundation that is Christ. Thank you so much for staying until the end, for listening to me, for being a part of this journey with me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, hit the notification bell, share this video with someone who might need to hear this message, and most importantly, leave your comment down below telling your story, your thoughts, your victories, because every story matters. Every voice deserves to be heard, and together we are stronger. May God bless you abundantly. May He give you peace, strength, wisdom, and courage to face whatever lies ahead. A big hug, and I'll see you in the next video.